Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. I'm going to give it just a few minutes for everybody to join on, but while I'm waiting for that, I'm actually going to go wash my hands. So if you haven't done that yet, I recommend you do that now. So I'm just going to wet my hands, I'm going to get some soap, lather for 20 seconds, and then rinse them and dry them. If you're just joining right now, I'm just washing my hands quick before we get started. All right. I think we have a good number of people on, so I'm going to get started here. Hi, like I said, welcome to our virtual cooking class. I'm Festival of Foods Mealtime Mentor and Registered Dietitian Casey. I'm really excited to be here today with you in your kitchen from our Festival of Foods test kitchen. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're ready to get cooking. A couple of housekeeping notes before we jump in. Each of your microphones will remain muted throughout the class, but when you have questions or comments, please go ahead and use that Q&A function. It's a little button on the bottom, so please use that instead of the chat so that we can more easily track the questions that are coming in and make sure that we get all of them, and also that everybody can see our responses to them as well. We have mealtime mentors Jenny and Lauren who are on the chat as well, ready to answer your questions and share some of your comments throughout the class too. So if you are not taking this live, if you're taking this on demand afterwards and you have questions, you can reach out to us at askfestivaldietitians.com. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. So today we're making English muffin pizzas. Definitely one of my favorites. I always enjoyed making these when I was a kid. It's a really fun and customizable snack or lunch. So I'm really excited for this one. I've actually been making this a lot lately. I don't know, I've just been on the English muffin train. So we'll get started with this. So before we get started, like I said, I washed my hands. I've also washed my produce just under some running water and dried that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is set my oven to broil. That's where we're going to put the English muffins to toast them a little bit. Okay, so I've got my oven set to broil. So now I have my baking sheet here. I'm just gonna line this with some parchment paper. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, or if you prefer to use foil, you can do that. You can spray with some cooking spray. I just like to line my pans a little to make cleanup a little easier. I kind of crumpled this too so that it wouldn't keep rolling in on itself. That's always kind of tricky. So I've got my baking sheet prepared here. I'm going to start then with our English muffins. So I'm using whole wheat English muffins today. Whole wheat is really great because it's got a little extra fiber, which helps keep us fuller for a little bit longer. But whatever English muffins that you prefer are great. So I've already gone through and split them. So if you need to split them or cut them, go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to spread them out here on my baking sheet. If you need, of course, gluten-free, you can definitely look for a gluten-free muffin. We also have a gluten-free, dairy-free English muffin. There's a brand called Katz that you can find in our natural and organic department if you're looking for something like that. But like I said, today I'm using 100% whole wheat. So I've got this spread out here. Now I'm just going to go through with some olive oil and just kind of drizzle over the tops of them, just to kind of help these brown up a little bit when we put them in the broiler. If you wanted to, you could skip broiling and you could just toast these English muffins in the toaster to get them a little bit crispy before we bake them again with all the toppings. Or you could just leave them and not toast at all, and you might just have a crust that's not quite as crispy, but up to you. Oop, I got a little happy with that one, but it'll be okay. Okay, so I've got my olive oil on these, so I'm gonna stick them in my oven under the broiler then for 3 minutes and just kind of keep an eye on them so that they don't get burned. All right, I'm gonna set my timer too so I don't forget. Okay, so while my English muffins are going, I'm going to work on cutting some of the veggies that I have to put on top of my English muffin. Of course, lots of different toppings that you could put on your English muffins. To get started though, I'm gonna cut a green bell pepper. So to cut this, if you have a bell pepper, you can follow along if you haven't already cut it. I'm gonna cut the top of it off, maybe about an inch, half inch from the top, and then the bottom, just to make it a little bit easier. But I'm not gonna throw this away. There's still some good pepper in these that we can cut up too. And then I'm just gonna cut a slit down one of the sides, and that kind of opens. Okay, this is a really easy one. The core just fell right out. But if your core is still attached, you can go ahead and cut it off. And this is just an easy way to kind of cut off that green or the white flesh that's in there, and any seeds that might be in there too. There's no wrong way to cut a bell pepper though, so if you have a different way that you prefer, go for it. So now I've got this nice long strip of bell pepper. So I'm just gonna go through and cut smaller strips from this. I'll do about half of this. And then I'm gonna turn them and just go back through. I'll just do half of these right now and just chop them through. So a couple of knife safety tips as we're using this. It's important to keep your knives sharp. It might sound counterintuitive, but a sharper knife is safer than a duller knife because you're not going to be forcing it as much when you're cutting, which could injure you if you slip. If you need to sharpen your knives, we offer free knife sharpening in our meat department. So go ahead and bring your knives in. You can bring up to 3 at a time and drop them off at the meat department, do the rest of your shopping, and come back and pick those up. It's a nice service to get those sharpened. Another knife safety tip to keep in mind is if you happen to drop your knife, let it fall. It can be kind of, again, counterintuitive. You might want to try to catch it. But of course, that can be more dangerous if you try to catch it and then it ends up falling, injuring yourself even more. So let a falling knife fall. Try to step out of the way, of course. And then the last one is don't let your knife soak in water. So if you have like a sink of soapy water, maybe you're doing dishes, don't throw the knife in there and then walk away, because you never know if either you or somebody else could walk back. Maybe you forget that it's in there and then go to grab it, and then of course you can injure yourself that way too. So a few things to keep in mind there. All right, so I've got a good amount of green pepper here. Oh, and my broiler timer is going off, so I'm gonna go ahead and check my English muffins. All right, I like mine pretty toasty, and these aren't quite brown yet, so I'm gonna let this go for another minute. Just to let those brown up a little bit more. But maybe yours look great and you want to take them out, that's great too. The next thing I'm going to prepare is I have just a white onion. So for this one, I really don't need that much, so I'm just going to cut just a little chunk off here. So I kind of have like a ring going. I'm going to take off that white, the outer layer. So I just have a ring. I'm just going to go through and chop this both ways just to get tiny little pieces of onion. Again, these are just the toppings that I'm going to add to my pizza. I'm interested in what toppings you guys are using as well. The last veggie that I'm going to add is mushrooms. So I've just got some mushrooms. I got already sliced mushrooms just to make it a little bit easier, but of course, whatever works. All right, these are looking good. Okay, so I got my English muffins. I'm gonna take them out. stick them there. And then I'm gonna increase or decrease, depending on how you look at it. I'm gonna change the temperature of our oven to 400 degrees. All right, we'll let that go. That's what we'll cook all of our pizzas in once we have all the toppings on. So like I said, I have mushrooms here today. They're already sliced, so some of the work is done for me. I'm just gonna kind of go through and do kind of a rough chop with these. But yeah, like I said, lots of different toppings that you could add. I'm also going to end up adding, we have these little mini pepperonis, which are really fun in our meat department. But you could also use regular pepperonis if you wanted to just kind of take them and cut them into quarters. Those would fit really well onto your pizza. You could do sausage. Just make sure if you do sausage that it's cooked beforehand, whether you buy a cooked sausage or you buy raw sausage and you cook it at home. Because when we bake them later, that's not really going to be enough time for anything that needs to be fully cooked to cook. So just make sure you do that ahead of time. Spinach is really great on pizza, of course. I'm interested too in the pineapple debate. I don't know if any of you have seen this online or anywhere, but the big question of whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. In my opinion, I actually do enjoy pineapple on pizza, but I just don't do it really ever. So, which I feel like is, you're usually like either you really like it or you really don't, and I'm kind of in the middle, but that's definitely a good option to add. Chicken, of course, would be good. Again, make sure that you cook that ahead of time. You could do eggplant for something different. Lots of ways to top your pizza. All right. I've got a pretty good chop here of my mushrooms. So at this point, I have all of my toppings prepared for at least before my pizzas go in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and start to build these pizzas. Let's see if this is, oh, it's not hot anymore. Okay, so of course, first thing I'm gonna do is go through with some pizza sauce. I'm just gonna top each of them with about a tablespoon for each one, but choose your own adventure if you like a little more sauce or a little less sauce. I was interested when I was preparing for this class, I was thinking about, getting pizza sauce and how actually this stemmed from the last time that I made pizza with my fiance. I asked him to get some pizza sauce from the store and he ended up getting pasta sauce. And I thought, what is the difference between the two? We used it and it was fine, but you could tell that it was just a little bit different. So I looked it up and it turns out that pizza sauce is not cooked. So that's what kind of gives it like a fresh, zippy tomato flavor. And that's why it's good for pizza, because you end up cooking it. Generally, you're building your pizza and then you end up putting it in the oven. And pasta sauce is cooked. So generally, pasta sauce is slow roasted. Basically just because usually when you're using a pasta sauce, you're combining it with something that's already cooked, aka cooked pasta, so it doesn't go through that process again. So just a fun fact, if you do have pasta sauce, it'll taste just fine, but it turns out that's the difference. All right, I've got all of my pizzas nice and covered here with my pizza sauce. So now I'm going to go through and add some cheese. I'm just using a part skim mozzarella shredded cheese today. I've also seen some debate on whether you should put your toppings on before your pizza or vice versa. I'm kind of a more is more person. I like to do a little bit of both, so get like a nice base of cheese and then put toppings, and then just a little sprinkle of the cheese on top of those. The toppings, it turns out, are actually nice to have kind of on top because it helps them to get a little bit roasty in the oven, which is really, really tasty. But again, up to you. You could also definitely use different types of cheeses if you prefer. Maybe you really like cheddar cheese, or like a provolone if you wanted to be a little bit different. Whatever you prefer. All right, so I've got my cheese on here. I'm going to go through now too and add just a little bit of Italian seasoning, just to add a little bit of flavor to these. You could add dried oregano. You could add dried basil. Maybe you have just like a standard like pizza seasoning that would be really good on this. Whatever you'd like to add for a little flavor. Garlic powder would be good. Yeah. All right, so I've got these prepared now. So now all I have to do is go through and add all of my toppings. So I'm going to start with my pepperonis here. Like I said, I'm using these cute little, you probably can't see these too well, but they're just cute little tiny pepperonis. I think they're so fun. So I'm just going to add a few. I'm not going to put these on all of them, just for some variety. I'll put these on half of my pizzas. And we'll have some vegetarian ones down here too. So yeah, if you want to make this vegetarian, of course, simply omit any meat that you would add, or you can find like a plant-based alternative. That would go well in here as well. So I'm going to go through with my onions. Just add some of those on each one. When I'm making pizza, whether it's like a regular pizza or these, I really overload with toppings. I'm really big on having like a ton of toppings, but I need to be careful about that because it doesn't always work out so well. But again, do whatever you like with these. Go through with my green peppers. Oh, something too that, a little pro tip for making these, after we bake them and you get them out of the oven, there's like little, shredded cheese that didn't stay on the English muffin. Do not throw your parchment paper away without trying that cheese if you're a cheese fan. The little crispy cheeses are, honestly, in my opinion, the best part of this recipe. Just enjoying those little bites. They're so good. Maybe add some on purpose, just on the parchment paper, just so that you can get some of those. And then, of course, my mushrooms. Mushrooms are really great too. If you are doing like a vegetarian option, mushrooms have kind of like a meaty texture. They have that umami flavor that we get from meat a lot of times. That can really be kind of a substitute for that, or an addition if you're me. All right, so we've got all of our toppings on here now. My oven is just about at 400, so I'm actually just going to throw these in. We really just need the cheese to be melted. Oh, I forgot to add the cheese on top. I'm glad I mentioned that. I just like to do a little sprinkle on top, but do whatever you'd like for these. So it's okay if your oven isn't quite at 400 yet, because nothing needs to be, we don't have any uncooked meats or anything like that. So really, at this point, we're just looking for the cheese to be melted, and then those muffins are going to brown around the edges too. So, yep, this is cool enough. So I'm going to move this back. All right, and then the last thing that I'm going to do here, through my vegetable mess going on, is I'm just going to cut up some basil, some fresh basil, to top my pizzas with. If you don't like basil, of course, you can skip this. I really love basil, and this adds a really nice fresh flavor to it. So I've got my basil here. What I'm going to do, these are pretty big leaves, but I'm just going to layer a few leaves on top of each other. We're going to do what's called, you might have heard it as chiffonade or chiffonade. It's basically just cutting the basil into little thin ribbons. It's a really nice way to cut this herb because it's pretty delicate, so if you chop it, that's fine, but it can be more easy to bruise that way. So this is a way that kind of helps it stand up a little bit better. So I'm actually going to flip these. So if you have your basil leaf, again, this is a pretty big one, but if you have your basil leaf, there's kind of the front side and then the back side. And you can kind of tell because it sort of curls toward the back side. So what we want is we're going to stack these. I'm going to put that one on the bottom because it's the biggest, so that the curled side is up. That'll just make it a little bit easier here. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to roll it. Just roll it on top of each other. So I have this kind of like basil tube going on. And then I'm going to take my knife and then I'm just going to slice it. And depending on your basil, if it's a little bit more crisp, it might be a little easier to chop, but yeah, so I'm just cutting little, like, you end up with these like little rings going on, but then when you, of course, when you take them apart, you have these nice, fun basil ribbons. Fun for decoration too. Just kidding. All right, so I've got a nice pile of basil. Oh, it smells so good too. Oh my gosh. This is also something that you could do in the summer if maybe you grow basil. I always struggle to use all the basil that I grow. So you can freeze the whole leaves if you want to, but this is a really good way to preserve them if you want. You can go through and cut your basil, and if you want to get ice cube trays and either put water or maybe some broth in them and then stick your basil chiffonade in those and freeze it with that. It's something that's really easy that you can add to soups or stews or sauces throughout the year. So that's all I have for our pizzas. Like I said, I'm going to wait for these. They bake for about 10 minutes, but just keep an eye on them. Really, you're going to wait until that cheese is melted and the edges of the English muffin are browned. And then once I take them out, I'm just going to top them with a little basil. And that's all for these English muffin pizzas. So I won't wait here with you. I'll let you let your English muffins finish cooking and then enjoy those. But thank you so much for joining our class today. We hope you had fun and learned a few tips and tricks along the way. Whether you're taking this class live or on demand, you will receive a post-class survey to the email address you provided at registration. So we would really appreciate it if you would take the survey and let us know what you thought or if you have any other ideas for these classes so that we can make them even better. So as a thank you, we'll be picking one survey responder from our live class to win a $25 Festival Foods gift card. Also be sure to check us out. We have lots more recipes at festfoods.com/meals. And then follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fest Foods. We post lots of our recipes there as well. And then you'll also be the first to hear about our upcoming classes. We also have an email list. Appetite is what it's called. And we'll also be sending out information there on our upcoming classes as well. So you can sign up for that email at festfoods.com/appetite. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.